That's in there yet. I'm excited about it.
Let's see. I actually, no, I've got it. Thank you.
Yes, the pump is pretty good. You're waiting for something to happen.
Yes, I have a thank you.
Where were they?
Where's your security guy?
I'm officially out.
You're officially off, and you're on 2CT. Yeah.
We got our up, and we'll just be on this.
You're security guy.
So we can lunch.
Sunshine. Come on out. We're almost there, man. It's almost here. Come on, let's go. It's not good.
That's the first one. Literally, they're like, this is the only person. I gotta say, do you have a moment to talk? Since you are
I'm working.
Hi. Hello. It keeps hanging on. Yes, I can. Yeah, I got you. We're up. No, I can't hear anything. Now I can. Yeah.
in the night. Given I'm not here, just lights it up. Everybody's here now.
Yeah, I think it would come after yesterday when the administration said that they would go into suspending.
Yeah, let me just see if I can find the camera guy. He's supposed to be here.
They're distributing it, right? Okay.
Casey's taking his trash can and David's taking his trash.
Just go around. You want to go around? Just go around.
Here, come behind.
Mary, Mary. You didn't hear me go. How are you? Last time I thought you were in Brazil.
I was.
So is this?
I'm going
graduate
back and
school?
forth. Yeah, I'm going to grad school here.
Oh,
Finishing.
good.
me a favor? Do me a favor. Write down later to David Albritton, or you call him. He wants to do this. There. Top. Jeff? Try this. I'm sorry. tell you. What did you say? Oh, that's
Wait, can we say that one more time for our comrades inside? We're also like into I'm neutral.
We're not here for that. I mean, for something to get sound. Oh, yeah, that's it. That's it. Nah, cool doesn't. You can't do that. girl, you genius
No,
lady.
we got in at 6:30.
Right.
Your jacket.
The grandeur, look at you. The grandeur.
May not have gone to Columbia.
Good for you?
Nothing coming out. Right where she is.
I did stuff like that already. But because it's you, I will get the grandeur stuff. And her grandma. too. Okay, what did she say? Should.
Yeah, why don't you see the broken glass?
Too late.
Close the door.
Oh, go ahead. I don't even know what. I got it. Oh, that's right. Mary's the best. There is somebody there. See over Hamilton's head? You know what's amazing? They don't know that.
By the Columbia misinformation machine. We've seen them repeatedly lie to press, and we want to ensure that you have the facts from us as best as we're able to share them. So I'm going to begin by just repeating the information shared in the press release last night, and then I can share a few updates that have taken place since then. I'm not giving my name. A number of students have received threats to their families who have participated in press, so I'm choosing to remain anonymous for now.
You're a student.
I'm a student here at Columbia, yes. So I'm going to reshare the press release that went out last night shortly over the takeover of Hind Hall, and then I will also share a few updates that have transpired since then, and we can do like a couple of questions, very brief Q&A period. But again, I'm not representing the people who are participating in the autonomous action, so I can do my best, but that's it. All right. After 206 days of genocide and over 34,000 Palestinian martyrs, Columbia community members took back Hamilton Hall just after midnight. An autonomous group reclaimed Hind Hall, previously known as Hamilton Hall, in honor of Hind Rajab, a Gazan martyr murdered at the hands of the genocidal Israeli state at the age of just 6 years old. This escalation represents the next generation of the 1968, 1985, and 1992 student movements, which Columbia once repressed yet celebrates today. Protesters have voiced their intention to remain at Hind Hall until Columbia concedes to Quad's 3 demands, which are divestment, financial transparency, and amnesty. Resistance is justified in the movement for liberation. Liberators acting in solidarity with Palestine continue to hold themselves to a higher standard than Columbia. I cannot stress this enough, a higher standard than Columbia. This university has repeatedly endangered its students by instituting a police state with military-style checkpoints, repressing and isolating students on campus, calling armed riot cops for the largest mass arrests on campus since 1968, and weaponizing food insecurity and houselessness in order to escalate and use as leverage in negotiations. Columbia has forced protesters to escalate by contributing to a genocide while refusing to follow the baseline standards of conduct that make negotiations possible. As this group continues to hold down Hind Hall, we reiterate that Quad's encampment is a peaceful form of protest, as demonstrated over the last 12 days. Students and community members are risking suspension and arrest to end the true state of emergency on campus, Columbia's complicity in the genocide in Gaza. Taking back our own campus is the only and last response to an institution that obeys neither its own so-called rules nor ethical mandates, which is why we began the Gaza Solidarity Encampment. We call on the press and members of the public to hold Columbia accountable for any disproportionate response to students' actions today and late last night. To Columbia's administrators and trustees, please do not incite another Kent or Jackson state by bringing soldiers and police officers with weapons onto our campus. If you do so, students' blood will be on your hands. We are grateful to the brave students and community members who put themselves in harm's way last night to protest Columbia's complicity. Taking over a building is a very small risk compared to the daily resistance of Palestinians in Gaza. As we inch toward Israel's planned invasion of Rafah, which now houses over 1.5 million displaced Palestinians, it is more urgent than ever to fight Columbia's contributions to the ongoing murder, maiming, and forced starvation of millions of Palestinians. We, the students, cannot sit by as our tuition and our labor is used to support mass murder. For the last 2 weeks, students have put their safety, homes, education, and careers in jeopardy, knowing that no universities remain in Gaza due to US-funded bombs. As members of the Imperial Corps, the least we can do is pressure this university to divest, open the gates, end the occupation, and welcome the free movement of all people, from Palestinians to our neighbors in Harlem, from the river to the sea. We cannot act for our Palestinian comrades, but we see them, we are with them. We are honored to join the mass movement of students, workers, and comrades across the world in the fight for Palestinian liberation. This message comes to you from here, the People's University for a Liberated Palestine. I can now share some updates since last night before taking questions, which again will be very brief. Since last night, Columbia has begun issuing interim suspensions for students they allege were on the West Lawn encampment, and that began early this morning. So just a small piece of misinformation to collect. I know at Columbia's press briefing yesterday, they said statements had begun to go out yesterday evening. For what it's worth, as far as we can tell, they began to go out this morning. These suspensions were determined completely arbitrarily, and they have targeted at least 3 Palestinian students, regardless of their presence at the encampment after the university's stated and manufactured deadline of 2 p.m. yesterday. They are targeting our Palestinian students. One of the students who received an interim suspension is Mahmoud Khalil. He is on our negotiation team. Many of you have encountered him here before. And we believe that this is strong evidence that Columbia does not and never has wanted to bargain in good faith. It is suspending us, including our negotiators, in order to get away from good faith negotiations. And it is creating a state of emergency on campus, again, to sabotage negotiations as we attempt to come to a mutually agreeable solution. In addition to targeting Palestinian students for suspension and now expulsion, according to the university's latest statement that students are risking expulsion, it seems that the university has identified students for suspension based on who swiped into Butler Library after 2 p.m. And I clarify this because it means the university is going after people for being in a library on the last day of class, right before the exam period. That is, as far as we can tell, one of their main ways of determining who they are going after for suspensions. We believe this is a perfect example of how Columbia has failed its educational mission and transformed into a police state that reproduces in miniature the surveillance and institutional repression of the people of Palestine abroad, and here are pro-Palestinian students. This is a much smaller version of what takes place at a larger scale every day. As I said, I don't have many details on the status of the autonomous protesters inside Hind Hall. What I do know is that the protesters are acting in solidarity with Quad's 3 demands for divestment, financial transparency, and amnesty. I believe they are also now demanding a commitment from Columbia not to send in NYPD or public safety, which we believe would be a grave risk to the well-being of students on this campus, including the students who are in Hind Hall right now. And they're also asking for a commitment from Columbia for food and water to be brought in. Again, these are basic things that ensure the safety of their own students. I also believe there have been no official negotiations, and no negotiator has yet been appointed on either side. The university, as is no doubt very clear to you all now, is on lockdown and has suspended normal university rules in a severe overreaction to a completely non-violent direct action with massive support from the student body. This means in-person research that does not take place in a very small handful of labs has been interrupted. The university has completely sabotaged its role as a place of research and learning, which we see through the suspension of research in person and through the state of emergency it's declared, and through the risk to the safety and well-being of students on campus. Non-essential staff who had previously been allowed on campus were asked to evacuate beginning around 10 a.m., according to what they've told us. Residential buildings have not yet been evicted, but we know Columbia has been preparing for mass evictions. That's information that was shared with us from members of the University Senate, faculty members over the weekend. So they have been preparing for mass evictions, which would leave thousands or hundreds of low-income students, especially without housing. And we have no information on whether Columbia plans to pull the trigger on these really despicable mass eviction plans. We are hearing reports that the university, which previously committed not to call the NYPD on peaceful protesters after mass public outrage, is now considering inviting riot police onto campus. Public safety officers are confiscating students' private property from the library, which we were legally permitted entry into until the lockdown. It has made no plans, to our knowledge, for students to retrieve their belongings, and it also hasn't committed not to use this confiscation as an opportunity to further surveil student protesters. Only one dining hall is now open for the entire school, resulting in widespread fears among students of food not being sufficiently available for those on the meal plan. And to try to do damage control, Columbia is now bribing students with $80 gift cards in partnership with Grubhub to pay for food. Those are all the updates I have. I can take some brief questions. Yes.
Hi, I'm Michelle Goldberg from the New York Times. Can you say why negotiations with the encampment broke down?
Yeah, negotiations broke down because the university revealed it simply wasn't willing to negotiate in good faith. They made no compromises whatsoever, and they were completely misleading in their bargaining position. So a concrete example of that is they indicated supposedly an openness to one of our demands for financial transparency, but they misleadingly described it as, they described it as financial transparency, but it was just for direct holdings, which represent a little over 6% of the university's total investments. That's not a compromise. That's completely unacceptable. And besides that, we cannot negotiate in good faith with people who are willing to use our safety as leverage in negotiations. That's just not something that happens in any normal negotiation process. I'm a member of the union here. We wouldn't allow that in bargaining with the union. And so it shouldn't happen now. We've been completely nonviolent, and they've consistently threatened us with riot police, with guns, with calling in the National Guard. Again, these are things that have resulted in the death of students in very analogous situations in the past, and they're using it against us. The university in negotiations.
How many student?
Sorry, I need one at a time.
Thank you. How many student demonstrators have been suspended so far or not allowed on campus, and how does this change activism among the encampment and demonstrators?
I don't have the exact numbers right now. I know that it's, if you're asking about like the more recent round of suspensions, I believe it is somewhere around 20 or higher, but don't, despite saying it on in front of mics. Don't quote me on that. That's my best information right now. We'll try to get you that information as soon as we can. I'm sorry, what was the second half of your question?
How does this affect the demonstrations, activism? You have students that are now off campus, not allowed on.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to say for certain because this is an autonomous action and everybody is, acting kind of to the best of their abilities, but we are not in close coordination at all. But that said, from the conversations I've had with other students, the students stand behind the takeover of Hind Hall completely. We saw that in terms of the mass support that came out last night. Students are very motivated to continue to stand behind Quad's 3 demands for divestment, financial transparency, and amnesty. And Colombia has repeatedly shown that it thinks that it can repress people with different political opinions through crackdowns, whether that's through a lockdown, through the threat of violence at the hands of soldiers and militarized police. And time and time again, not only at Columbia, but campuses across the country has backfired. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again.
We spoke to Mahmoud.
Was there a
and he
vote
said-
taken last night at the encampment, for the autonomous group to go in, and how many people would you estimate are in the autonomous group?
I have no information on that.
So there was no vote last night at the encampment?
I am not privy to any information of a vote. I have no further information.
Okay, and then what about, are we going to hear directly from the people in the encampment, and how many people would you estimate? Not in the encampment. Are we going to hear directly from the people in Hall, and how many people would you estimate that are there?
I believe it is somewhere around 60 inside, but I'm not totally certain. Again, I cannot stress enough, I don't represent them. I'm here as a member of Quad because our organizing has made it possible to, try to collect updates to the best of our ability, but it's fundamentally limited. And in terms of whether you hear from them, I think that's up to them and up to the university.
We spoke to Mahmoud, and he, so you've lost him as a negotiator. He said he doesn't actually know why he's been suspended at all because he had an agreement with the university that he could go back and forth in the encampment.
Yeah.
There's another negotiator, I understand, who you've lost. So I'm curious to know, how are you going to get your demands met? Because that suggests that the talks with the university have completely fallen, that they're just not listening to you guys anymore.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is something that's in the university's control. I think anybody who saw their severe overreaction to peaceful protesters on April 17th, where hundreds of us, over 100 of us, were arrested, knows that Columbia is not using any kind of reasonable judgment right now that members of the public, members of the community would share. And so I think they've similarly failed to exercise reasonable judgment in terms of like how they conduct themselves to ensure that negotiations can continue in a safe way. Well, that's what I'm saying. They're unable to continue safely right now. And so we would love nothing more than, open, transparent negotiations, but Columbia has not made that possible, and it's squarely their responsibility.
Will you continue protesting? I mean, I assume it's not over for you, but for the protest.
The movement will certainly continue, yes. I don't think we have any plans of stopping anytime soon, but in terms of how negotiations will resume, I think that is largely in the hands of the university. It's up to them to commit to not threatening us with food insecurity, evictions, and soldiers and militarized police. That would be a great first step.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries, we want to take over this building, now would you please bring us food and water? And
nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food.
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it
but
violently.
they haven't stopped it yet.
Well, I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
And the Grubhub, you mentioned the Grubhub. Is that as a bribe? Is that for sort of students who leave campus, or what is kind of the
Yes.
quid pro quo, or do you know how that works?
I also asked about that because I am not on a meal plan and don't know how the Grubhub thing works. So what I was told is that Columbia, through the dining hall program, has a partnership with Grubhub that allows them to allows students to leave campus to go pick up food. And so Columbia's giving students $80 through that program, and students so far who are in dorms can leave and come back, but they're the only people basically who can leave and come back.
What are Quad's next steps, and could any of this impact graduation? Are there any plans to demonstrate at graduation or anything like that? Do you know of?
I don't have any information one way or the other about graduation plans. I think that it's really bizarre to us and perhaps to members of the public to see so much concern over graduation when we're in the middle of a genocide. I think you have to really look at what's important here. The students here stand behind. It's so obvious from just being on campus. We've seen mass support for the protests. Those are the people who are impacted by a potential risk to graduation, and they're saying, no, not in my name. Please, Columbia should not be participating and fueling a genocide because of a graduation ceremony. That's not something they want. It's really up to Columbia to come to a peaceful solution as soon as possible if it wants to preserve graduation, but that's entirely something in their control.
Can you explain the relationship between the students at Pine Hall and the encampment? I know it's on campus, but they come from the encampment, and how many students are still currently on the encampment?
I don't have that information, I'm sorry.
Are there still students in the encampment?
Yes, as far as I know, there are students both in the encampment at the West Lawn and a new encampment that sprung up, I believe, on Lewison Lawn, which is another lawn last night. I haven't been able to personally verify it because I am not allowed inside, but that's the information I have.
There's 3 quote-unquote encampments, one on the main lawn, one on the Lewison Lawn, and now one at Pine Hall.
If you want to, I don't know that I would characterize that as an encampment, but yeah, 3 sites of protest, maybe we could say, yeah.
Can you give us a sense of what sort of organisation and planning went into last night?
No, I can't.
And what sort of coordination is between your group and the protesters inside?
I don't have sufficient information to share that right now.
Are you all 3 suspended?
I'm suspended. I don't know about the other people here. We're not all 3 suspended. I am one of the students who was arrested and suspended for peaceful protest on April 18th.
Do you think talks are still going on?
They're not. No, they're not. I mean, the university has suspended and banned from campus one of its 2 negotiators.
Can you talk about the people that are participating in those various actions and their comfort with potentially being expelled as a result of this? What's your sense from the people's varying level of risk?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't represent those students and I'm not inside, so I can't speak to their state of mind right now. But from everything I know from speaking with student protesters on campus, we have all undertaken risk to our safety, our careers, our education, knowing that it shouldn't be that way and it doesn't have to be that way, but it is that way because of Columbia's violence against us and retaliation against us, and occasionally members of the public's retaliation against us. That's risk that we're motivated to take on because this is, it's been over 200 days of genocide, and bodies are being recovered in mass graves in hospitals with their hands behind their back, execution style, or while wearing surgical gowns. This is something that we feel responsible for since our tuition and labor is, fueling that. And we are willing to take on an extremely minor amount of risk compared to what the heroic people of Gaza are dealing with every single day. I can take one final question and then I think we should end this.
What kind of support are you getting from the Harlem community?
The Harlem community, I think there are kind of 2 parts of this question. The first is that it's really our obligation as Columbia students to support Harlem and not Harlem's obligation to support Columbia. We are on stolen land from indigenous people and the land of people who were displaced from Harlem. the 1968 protests that resulted in an occupation of what was formerly Hamilton Hall partly revolved around where we are right now, which is Morningside Park, where Columbia attempted to build a segregated gym that would segregate the wealthy white people from Morningside Heights, where we are now, from Harlem land. And that was one of the sites of contest and reasons for protest in 1968. And that continues to be an object of concern to us now, is that as a white person at Columbia University, an Ivy League college, I benefit every single day from Columbia's displacement of the people of Harlem. I've been here a long time, and I've seen the way that Columbia has pushed out predominantly Black and Hispanic people from the neighborhood here. Often, anyway, don't get me started. I'm passionate about it. I'm upset. So our obligation is to support Harlem, not for Harlem to support us. But that said, none of this is possible without the support of the community in New York, in Harlem, across the world. This is an international movement, and it is also a coalitional movement that has involved many people from neighborhoods like Harlem, because we recognize that we have a shared fight. And when we say things like from the river to the sea or open the gates, it's in recognition of the shared fight that unites people at Columbia University, the people in Palestine, and people in Harlem. That's it. Thank you.
Could you restate your name?
I'm not sharing my name. Thank you.
Oh, how should we refer to you? Is there like a known?
I'm a student at Columbia.
Grad student or undergrad?
I'm a graduate student here.
What are your pronouns?
She, her.
And your age? Major?
I'm not sharing that any more information for my safety. Thank you.
Knicks? Nets?
You can come up here and tell us what you think about this about the sports. I'm, as you can tell, completely not sport inclined.
Okay, that's something.
Sports ball. All right. Good. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Why don't we move? Okay. Because I think you sorry. Okay.
Oh no, I mean these ones right
Yeah.
here. They very much.
I mean, you were right. I don't want to get
There is a connection, but again, as I just shared, we're not currently thinking about like focusing on electoral politics. We have our hands on campus right now, but obviously I can't comment on that. Sorry, the Josh was in what?
Excuse me, guys.
Oh, problem.
Thank you. Joel, may I?
Guys, I want to call something to your attention.
Okay, go ahead.
You wore those jeans, and you wore those jeans, you would be perfectly matching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at that one lonely student just sitting there.
Yeah, and that's good because it's set up for the graduation.
And also, the alma mater says there's only 3 people on the steps.
3 people what?
There's only 3 people on the main steps. So
I just like that shot of being alone. What's that, Jeff?
this one's
Oh, okay. That's a great shot of just so far away. No, I like it. It's loneliness. It's students doing what students do. My card is running out, but they're rolling, so I'm not rolling. Do you want to marry? You want to go around this way?
Okay.
Where's our...
What a team! Here's our reminder.
We're gonna go
hi
around
there.
this way. Thank you for chaperoning us.
Yes.
I think it would be no.
Yeah, I just want to get shots for the... if they ever need a package. All right, man. Did you lose something?
My Wi-Fi's
Oh.
shut itself off. I'm sending pictures afterwards.
Oh, I see. I would have hoped that people are honest. Cool.
Yes.
Thank you, Mary. I want to get a wide shot. Try to get... Yo. What's that, buddy? Yeah, that's not going. Do you think that's going to students? See, 36 years, you know, we're invited by the school. You can try, but...
Yeah, I dealt with this when I was here.